All right, number 22, review your process sheet on every trade. This is something, again, I'm always working on these different things, but this was probably right after I did my morning pages, if I had to guess. And I would encourage you to create your own, obviously, but I think this was a good start. Exercise, diet, pretty good on the exercise, okay on the diet, probably not the best. Rest and relaxation, I'm so there. I do have hobbies and I do really get into hobbies and obsessive hobbies and stuff. So that's good. But you want to be at your best, okay? Make sure you get some rest, get to bed early, wake up early, do your morning time, do your morning pages, have that quiet in the morning. The dog has interrupted me a little bit, and I did a whole segment just on disruptors, okay? And it could be something as simple as you get a new puppy and all of a sudden your morning time is screwed up, okay? And that could throw your whole day off. And you got to be really careful about that. Just stupid stuff. Like I got to the gym 5 minutes early this morning, and first thing I did was I cut my finger. Kind of a long story endless. And the gym didn't have any band-aids. I was unmanned today. And the lady that I know in there, she was kind enough to give me one out of her car. But I found myself just so pissed off, I'm bleeding like a stuck pig. I'm like, screw this workout. I'm just gonna go home. And I had to kind of take a deep breath and say, wait a minute, don't let this throw your whole day off. So that's what all your morning stuff does for you. It puts you in the proper mindset to face the day. And I would encourage you to stay analog as much as possible. And as I've said before, there was a book by a guy named Quick. I haven't finished it. I don't want to pick on the guy, but one of the things I don't like is he's spending a lot of time telling you what he's going to tell you. And I hate when somebody does that. And if I ever do that too much, at least, please call me on it. It drives my wife nuts when she reads a book like that, which is a short trip. She'll throw it against the wall, literally. I had another book. I have to find it. It looked like it had a lot of promise, and I was 56 pages in, and he was still telling me what he's going to tell me. Just freaking tell me, please. Now, on a positive standpoint, I do think Mr. Quick's book is probably of use. The book is named Limitless. And one thing he pointed out, and I need to dig it out and get the exact stats. I have it on audio, I think, on that one. I don't have the paper copy. But the point he was making is that we're bombarded with more information in one day than people years ago were bombarded in a lifetime, okay? And then the numbers are still pretty staggering if you go back like 30 years or so, or 40 years. So on an evolutionary standpoint, our brains are not equipped to deal with that. So that's something you got to think about. And as I've admitted before, I've never been tested for it, but I know I have. And I have a little ADD. You probably see it in these presentations, squirrel. My neighbor walks over every night and says that just to mess with my head. But all this information you're inundated with is not good for your brain, okay? So at the least, get up early, exercise. And I know you're thinking big days tell me exercise. Look, I rarely miss a day off at the gym because I know myself. If I miss a day, I'm gonna miss two, gonna miss a week, gonna miss 3 weeks, and then I'm done. So I just go every day. And people are like, you're so disciplined in the gym. I'm like, no, I'm not. You don't know me. The reason I'm here is because I'm not disciplined. Anyway, so you want to pick the best trades, obviously. Pick the best, leave the rest. I know it's cliche, but it's very, very true. One thing I like to do is especially because I have a trading service, okay? If I pick a stock and I put in a trading service, I have to fully justify why I picked that stock because there's a good chance that it could fail miserably, right? There's always a chance it could fail miserably. And at the least, I want to feel confident enough to where I thought this was the best, okay? And I thought it was worth a shot. And you have to acknowledge, accept, and ignore, okay, extraneous influences. So maybe I'm in a bad mood because the dog didn't let me get my work done, or because I cut my finger right before I got to the gym and couldn't find a Band-Aid, or whatever, or maybe I need money going into a trade. And is it, to quote Sakota, is it intuition that I think this chart pattern looks fantastic, or is it intuition because I need money? Okay. Now, ideally, you want to see what it is from a detached standpoint. Okay. Now, you might not have someone around that you can do this with, but just kind of do it out loud because I don't have anyone around me. I mean, of course, I could do it in the forum, which I've done before, but like if I'm thinking about a trade intraday or something, I need to talk about it. I need to kind of sell it to myself out loud, but kind of take a standpoint where if you had to defend your position, especially if it failed miserably, that's kind of getting back to that negative visualization where it's like, I'm going to take this trade. And we talked about this. And one thing with the negative, just to back up a second on the negative visualization, one thing poking around the internet a little bit, I noticed they talked about a pre-mortem, and I didn't know that that was an actual word. I thought I invented that word. You know, it's crazy. You think you invent something and then you realize that somebody else has already coined the phrase or invented it. But the pre-mortem is you're kind of looking at it like you're looking at it in hindsight, like what would happen if it failed miserably. It kind of dovetails in nicely with that negative visualization. And I forget which number it was, but go in and look at my watch list under trading quick clips on YouTube and see which one that was where I had the do a pre-mortem every trade and flesh that out. Now, you might be wrong, okay? Negative visualization once again, okay? Accept the fact that you are discounting the future, okay? As I've shown many times, it's like you see this beautiful little setup, a little TKO type of setup, or a pullback to the moving average, the Landry pullback, or whatever. It's accelerating higher, it's persisting higher. It's just a beautiful setup, okay? The moment you place a trade, everything from here that way, okay, is completely known. Everything from here that way is completely unknown. And again, not to beat the dead horse, but a lot of shit can happen between now and then. Now, we haven't taken the trade yet, so you want to obviously plan the trade and trade the plan. That's cliche, but you have to do it. Now, where's your protective stop? Where's your trailing stop? Or you're going to use a little bit of discretion, like if it just barely triggers and comes back in, like the CCL, are you going to take the trade or not? If you know where your entry is and your protective stop, then your initial profit target is just a mathematical calculation. Now, here's the hard part. Again, like I said, life and trading is making decisions and living with them. So that's the hard part, is living with your decisions. Now, as I said 1,000 times, and I call this foresight and hindsight. So let's say you take a trade, it fails miserably. How many of us, and raise your hand, and I know everybody here should probably raise their hand, right? But how many of us have taken a trade, and when we stop at a loss, drop an F-bomb, right? Which is okay. And then say, I knew I shouldn't have taken that trade. Well, if you knew you shouldn't have taken that trade, and I'm guilty, believe me, why did you take it? Okay, so that's where the pre-mortem kind of comes in. Okay, if it fails miserably, and then negative visualization, okay, negative capability, that all these things come in, it's like, okay, you don't want to end up in that foresight and hindsight situation, because you knew if you ever lose on a trade and say, I knew I should have taken it, then obviously you shouldn't have taken it. Okay, now don't tell yourself that if you really thought it was a good setup. If you look back to your trading journal or whatever, or your plan, and you had it all planned out and it all looked good, then don't beat yourself up. Again, shit happens. I guess that'll be the title of this video. So here's you're gonna live with your decisions and document the outcome. Okay, so if it's a positive outcome, was it because of skill? Was the setup? And believe me, it does take a little while to separate skill from luck, or luck from skill, but it can be done. And Andy Duke talks a lot about that. Brian said that's never happened to me. Smiley face. With you on that, Brian. But Andy Duke talks a lot about luck from skill, and bad poker players, which could also be traders, when they lose, they blame it on bad luck, okay? And when they win, they always claim it was skill, when a lot of times maybe they just got lucky, okay? And who's the Phil? Always forget his name. It's one of the Phils. It's the black Phil, not the white Phil. But anyway, the black Phil is more of that negative visualization and kind of introspective from a little bit of a negative standpoint. Like, oh man, that third hand and that fourth game, boy, I really blew that, even though he won the whole tournament. Whereas the other Phil H, is, yeah, hey, my God, look at me. But you really have to work hard to separate the luck from skill. And getting back to I knew I should have taken that trade. I think the point of true enlightenment, or at least one of the aspects, is when you're looking at a trade and you made money on it and you say, boy, I sure got lucky on that one. What was I thinking? And that's okay. Okay. If you think I just got lucky and made money, you're okay. All right. But if it truly was skill, then congratulations. If you got lucky, especially if you're not willing to admit that you got lucky, you think it's just skill, okay, then be better. Annie Duke's book was Thinking in Bets, which was a good one. Now, let's say you have a negative outcome. Did you do all these things, okay? Did you pick the best and everything back here? Did you do all these things? Yes. Okay. Well, shit happens. All right. Sometimes twice, as I said before. No, then shame. Just be better next time. Okay. Trading is like you have to beat yourself up an ample amount. Okay. If you don't beat yourself up, you can eventually blow up because you just kind of continue without any discipline. Okay. And if you beat yourself up too much, you're going to cripple yourself and never make another trade.